Hello, my name is Julian Treasure. I'm author of the book Sound Business and chairman of the Sound Agency and 4-time speaker on TED.com about, you guessed it, sound. And right now I'd like to talk to you about sound in business, in fact specifically sound in offices. There's a big survey which is done on a rolling basis called the Leesman Index. It surveys dozens and dozens of factors which affect people's productivity. And as you can see from this graph, the noise level in the office is considered to be extremely important by many people, and yet so few of them are satisfied with it. We spend a lot of time in these spaces, in offices, and they look a certain way. And that way goes back to the beginning of the 20th century, a thing called Taylorism. You may never have heard of Taylorism. It kind of is battery farming for people in offices. It was an idea that came about, developed by a man called Taylor, of putting people in serried ranks of exactly the same desk, all exactly the same way, compressing them into a small space. This was deemed to be much more productive because you could see lots of people with just one supervisor overseeing hundreds. Well, of course, we've come a long way since the dark days of Taylorism, haven't we? Or have we? This is a modern office, and the same principles, unfortunately, apply. When you cram people into a dense, modern office like this, some pretty bad things happen. At the Sound Agency, we've reviewed 23 scientific papers, all looking at those effects, and here are the results. The sounds that we find most distracting are other people's conversation. In particular, that's the number one. We have bandwidth for just 1.6 human conversations, so other people's conversation is immensely distracting to us. Secondly, phones ringing. We all hate phones ringing because we're kind of hardwired to do something about a ringing phone. It's a very distracting sound when you're trying to think. It's also distracting when we have no control over the sound that's going on. If we can't do anything about it, we find it frustrating. Of course, if you had a big volume knob for the sound in the office, it would be fine. You could just turn it down when you want. And then there's variability. If the sound is hard to predict, then we find it much more disturbing. If we could predict it, we can acclimatise to it, but we can't if it's happening at random intervals. So those are the things that really get to us, and the results of those things are threefold. First of all, annoyance. We get frustrated and angry at the sound. Also distraction. We simply can't think. And thirdly, stress. It sets up a stress response inside of us. Stress hormones are being released, and it makes us ill, actually, in the long run. Well, as a company, that then creates lower job satisfaction. We have a demoralized workforce, people who aren't happy at work, who aren't enjoying it at all, and that makes them less sociable, less teamwork is done, and so forth. And we reduce productivity. Simple as that. If people can't think and work, then their productivity is reduced, and the upshot for the company is cost. It's not cost saving, it's cost generating to do this to people.